Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Morhonda of Bloomington.
Looks over the middle, second guesses, fires, throws. Does he make the catch in the end zone? Yes! Touchdown!
Oladipo to win it.
Another one!
He got
Another one!
Oladipo!
Another one! Huge hole! He's at the 30! He's gonna go! 10, 5, touchdown! Jonathan Taylor!
Galloway finds Rob Finnessy, who fires the three, and
He hit it!
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hey, welcome into another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by Endeavor Hospitality and Andy Morhonda of Bloomington. John, the producer, and Dustin Schutte here to get things rolling for you today on a Wednesday. Our old buddy Jim Coyle currently on assignment for the next few minutes. He'll be with us here shortly, supposedly joining us from the NFL Combine in Indianapolis. So we'll see what kind of things he's got planned for us over these next few days as he takes up residency in the central part of the state. Meanwhile, last night in Bloomington, something went down that many Indiana basketball fans were not pleased about. In fact, maybe all Indiana basketball fans, Dustin, were probably a little disappointed in what went down in Assembly Hall last night.
Little disappointed would be a huge undersell. That was, by far, in my opinion, the worst performance Indiana's had this season for a number of reasons, right? They still had the double bye is still at stake. The way they lost on the road at Carver Hawkeye, the way that they beat Purdue and just dominated. I mean, really, they dominated that entire second half, played well the first half, dominated the second half. Just very inconsistent. I don't like to question kids' effort because nobody's out there trying to lose, so I'm not going to question their effort. But this was about as pedestrian as I think we've seen this team look, at least in the last couple months. Like, to lose by 22 on your home court, and it never really felt that close, right? It wasn't like Iowa just hit a bunch of shots at the end of the game to pull away late. That game was, 13 to 20 points for what seemed like the entire 40 minutes?
I mean, the game was virtually over by the first media timeout of the second half. I mean, one could easily say that. You had an 11-point deficit at halftime. Yep. You don't come out with seemingly any adjustments to begin the second half, and you just let it get away from you. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, Mike Woodson can say whatever he wants. Obviously, everyone brought up the quote last night about how he said after the Purdue game this weekend, you want to be able to validate that win with the follow-up performance against Iowa. And this is the absolute antithesis of what that could have been. And obviously, after the game, too, he flat out apologized to the fans, said it was a bull crap, without the crap. It was his own expletive. A bull crap performance. We might pull that quote up for you guys to hear later. But I don't understand why Indiana, and I know they haven't done it all this entire season, but I just don't understand why it's so difficult for them to follow up emotional wins with something a little more consistent. You know what I'm saying?
No, I get it. I think that's probably the missing piece for this team right now. And I don't think that they've been – I saw that a lot on Twitter, and I don't know that they've really had a lot of those moments because you go back to the first time they beat Purdue – and then they beat Rutgers. I mean, it was kind of an ugly game, but that's how Rutgers likes to play. So you can say it was an inconsistent performance from that first Purdue game to the Rutgers game, but they still went out and won. They still got scrappy. This like Robbie Hummel said something on the broadcast. I don't remember. I think it was like 5 or 6 minutes to go in the game. And he just said, it doesn't seem like Indiana thinks they can win this game. And it was an 18-point game. So the deck is stacked against you. But this is also, just a few days after Iowa pulled off a miraculous comeback against Michigan State, right? So, like college basketball, anything can happen. If you could get a run going there, maybe you at least give yourself a chance down the final 4 minutes. But, I mean, really, once they got down, and they could not stop Tony Perkins, they could not stop Chris Murray. Those two had a combined 49 points. Peyton Sanford came off the bench, gave him 16. Like they couldn't do anything on either end of the floor. That was, like I said, that was when you look at the Arizona game, the Kansas game, you could probably point to that Rutgers game earlier in the season in Piscataway. There have been some disappointing performances, but I think when you consider all that was at stake, the fact that this game was at home, again, it's against Iowa, who I don't think it's a rivalry, but there's no necessarily any love lost between the two programs. It was just, you expected something better. I'm not saying Indiana should have won the game, but fans should have expected a better performance than what they saw last night.
And it's just one of those things as we turn the page into the month of March now, where I feel like this past weekend, Indiana fans could probably confidently say what their identity is, what their expectations were going as we get closer into the postseason. And now it just seems like anytime, I don't want to say anytime you get your hopes up, something goes wrong, but anytime you feel like this team is going to start showing some sort of, they're not going to deviate away from their identity. I think Aaron Matus, he's been on the show before, summed it up pretty well last night. I just thought this Indiana team was past performances like this. Like, it's one thing to have a loss, a disappointing loss, like maybe you lose by a couple of points to Iowa at home after an emotional win against Purdue on the road. Yep. But I just didn't think that an Indiana team like this had it in them to get completely run out of their own gym with what's at stake right now at this point in the season.
Right. Well, I think part of this too is I'm not going to completely overreact to this, because Indiana for the past month or 2 months, wherever you want to put the start date on this, is playing much better basketball than they were. I mean, we go back to December. I didn't know that this team was going to be in the tournament. I thought that they might be a bubble team and sneak in, but they have turned a corner. And I think it's important to remember that almost everybody in college basketball this season, at least, has had a loss like this. And I know it's frustrating for Indiana fans, and I know it's disappointing because you don't want to follow up the loss to Purdue with a performance like this. But, we talked with Mike DeCourcy yesterday. Alabama got run out of the gym by Oklahoma. That's the number one team in the country. Purdue went up to Maryland and got crushed. So there have been other teams that are good teams. Tennessee has taken a few shellackings this season. There are good teams in college basketball that have lost big games. I think the frustration for Indiana is how do I want to put this? It's live. I'm live on the radio and I lost my words here, but it's like,
well, it just left you speechless while you're gathering your thoughts.
I don't know that it was necessarily speechless, but I think it's almost like you're going back in time and you're like, this is the same team we had in December. And I don't think that's true. Like, you know what I mean? Like your mind instantly goes back to, oh, this is the same team that played Kansas. This is the same team that played Arizona. We haven't really changed all that much. And I don't think that's accurate. I think this team has turned a corner. I think they're playing more confidently. And I know Jim would argue with this, but I'm going to say it anyway. I do think that there's a point where they're getting worn down a little bit because of the number of minutes they're playing, because of how hard they've had to work to climb back up to the top of the Big Ten and secure their spot in the NCAA tournament. Like, I do think that I don't care. Like, they're human beings. I don't care how old they are. I don't care what their nutrition is like or their training or whatever. They're human beings. They're 18 to 20. I don't know how old's Race Thompson, 27. They're 18 to 22. They're 18 to 23-year-olds. Like, you're going to have nights where you just don't have it. It's just disappointing at this stage in the season. And I think what a lot of people are doing is reflecting back and looking at some of these other losses earlier in the season and saying, this is the same team, when in actuality, I think it was like, again, it can be a disappointing night, but it was also like Iowa just had everything cooking.
Yeah. And you're right. Sometimes games just like that do happen. And I think back to what the point you were saying about, being tired. I think Zach Osterman may have said this a couple of weeks ago, if I remember correctly. The 2013 Indiana team that, was the best we've had in 15 plus years or whatever. He said by the postseason, that team was completely exhausted. Yeah. And they just looked different. I don't know if we're necessarily at that point yet with this team. We'll have to see how these next couple of performances go. But if the wheels start falling off, and I'm not making an excuse for them, but you can maybe start seeing that same kind of fatigue, if you will. So we'll have to just kind of keep an eye on how that goes. I think Woodson. I don't think they'll get run out of Assembly Hall twice with Michigan coming into town this weekend. I'm not saying they'll necessarily bounce back and win. They definitely should, but nothing is off the table in a season like this. When you have a team like this who's not necessarily going to give you the exact same performance. I mean, at this point, I guess nothing should surprise Indiana fans. I think I had this thought last night, and I don't know how realistic it is. I think Indiana could be bounced in the first round of the tournament, or at their best, make it all the way to the Final Four. It's weird that you should have that kind of a range. Just because Indiana did have streaky moments this season where it seemed like they weren't going to lose. It's just a matter of timing and which version of this Indiana team is going to show up when the NCAA tournament rolls around.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of it's going to depend on matchups too. And this is why I played devil's advocate a few weeks ago when we were talking about the Big Ten tournament. And is it, Indiana winning? Yeah, obviously they're not going to go into that tournament hoping to lose. They don't want to get beat. They want to prove that they're one of the better teams. They want to carry some momentum into the NCAA tournament. Apparently the mowing crew is outside here, so I apologize for that. But I think it's an interesting question when you consider how tired this team is and when you consider the injuries they've had to deal with. Is it better for them to lose earlier in the Big Ten tournament so they can rest up? Now, I wouldn't say that about a lot of teams in the Big Ten. I think it is probably more beneficial to at least win a few games, get some momentum under your belt, get some confidence going. But when you look at Indiana and how I think they're exhausted, how they've been injured, how they've had to play through so much, I think that if you get that full week of rest, I think it helps you a little bit. So they're obviously not going to go in there trying to lose a game. They're not going to go in there. But when you've got an NCAA tournament bid secure and you probably are locked into a 4 or 5 seed, after that loss, I don't see much room for movement. I mean, unless something crazy happens in front of them. So what's really the benefit of playing well in the Big Ten tournament? Like, to me, if you lose, big whoop, big deal. I mean, yeah, you can get a
really
the
only way I can see the committee punishing Indiana is by giving them, the seeding is fine, but by giving them a spot like in the West region. You don't want to go out and play in Las Vegas. You have really any other region is realistically travelable for a lot of Indiana fans. Obviously, the one we talked about yesterday, being in Orlando and then getting to play in Louisville, that's the ideal, at least for Jim. Maybe he just wants to travel to Florida. I don't know.
He wants Whataburger.
He wants Whataburger. That's, of course, yeah. Well, what an opening segment. We've already unpacked a lot with this Indiana team. Yeah. The Andy Moore Honda hotline is going nuts right now. We'll take a look at some of your comments when we come back. We don't have Bob Kravitz today, so we'll have another open segment before Jim comes with us. So we're going to go ahead and take our first break. You are listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. This segment brought to you by BB's Market in Bloomington, where you can find Jim on most Fridays during the week. We'll be back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
All right. I guess I was right, or you were right, Dustin, more accurately about the arrival time.
That would have been my guess.
Yeah. I got to go to my emergency list of music that I repeat.
There you go.
Whenever I don't have time.
Man, I mean, people are blowing this thing up. You guys are awesome.
They've been blowing up since before the show even started. I couldn't even keep up with it.
I know.
I was trying to pick out a few comments to go over.
IU was hungover, lost opportunity, flush it, beat UM. This team is so inconsistent. Murray is
actually
a beast.
One point that I haven't made yet, and I may make it here in a bit, and I may just say it right now. even though they're quote unquote inconsistent, I think every team they've played twice, the same result happened the second time. They beat Illinois twice. They lost to Iowa twice. They lost to Northwestern twice. They beat Purdue twice.
Huh.
Oh, Rutgers was different. They split with
Rutgers was 1-1. Yep.
Is there any other example, though?
That's a great question. I mean, if they beat Michigan,
isn't it weird thinking about that though?
It is. If they beat Michigan, they would have beat Michigan twice.
I guess true. Yeah, we'll have to see what happens this weekend.
Let's see. They lost to Rutgers. They beat Nebraska. They only played Nebraska once.
Yeah.
They lost to Northwestern twice. Beat Michigan State twice. Yeah.
They split with Michigan State. They split with Michigan. I forgot they played Michigan State twice.
Oh, that's right. Yes. They did. Okay. I forgot that they lost before they lost that game before they played Purdue.
I'm gonna see if I can get at least an ETA.
My bad,
from Jim.
He's probably cussing up a
just
storm.
Basically, so I can prepare for Kyle Neddenriep. That's mainly what I'm worried about with that.
Yeah. Gotcha. What time does he come on?
9:30.
Ba-dun-dun.
Hope I can. Are you able to shuffle through the comments? I can't think if you're able to or not.
I can't put them up on the. I can see them. I can't put them up on the screen.
I'll see if I can. I saw a couple earlier I wanted to bring up.
IU players laughing on the bench last few minutes of the
game.
I
missed that, but
I didn't see it. The John Alden and Dustin Schutte show, just what the doctor ordered.
I love that.
I do
think
too.
Fred always gives us he likes to stroke our egos a little bit.
Reminded me of the Michigan game last year after we beat Purdue.
All right, here we go.
Delicious 5-star comfort food with a Southern charm at 2-star prices. Southern Stone Restaurant is part of Endeavor Hospitality's Wow Club.
This segment is brought to you by Southern Stone Restaurant. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio. JTP and Dustin Schutte currently taking over the show while our boy Jim Coyle gets set up at the NFL Combine in Indianapolis. Does that means he's on assignment, right, Dustin? I mentioned at the beginning of the show, and Jim always loves to say that missing people are on assignment. So I thought it was best to include him in that today.
Hey, anytime somebody is missing or absent from the show, they are on assignment. Whether that's true or not, they are on assignment.
Hashtag on assignment.
So
as I get a sip of coffee.
I think that's appropriate. And Pete says the last night the Pacers got another win, so they've got 3 of their last 4, 2-1 since the All-Star break. So they're cooking along a little bit. That's good. Positive signs there for the Pacers.
Sure, people want to talk about the Pacers whenever things are going well or going bad for the Hoosiers, right?
That's right. I mean, you just mix it up, just change it up.
Let's take a look at some of these comments, man. Like we said earlier, the Andy Moore Honda hotline, a lot of people commenting this morning, trying to sort through this mess of comments. Here's one thing that stood out to me when I was looking through them earlier. Derek says, Crean has come out and said that the 2013 team had some internal stuff that they had felt with most of the season that drained them. He won't say what, though. First of all, I haven't heard that comment myself. I'm sure it's true. I'm sure he said it on a podcast or something. And it wouldn't surprise me if that's the case. I'm not sure if that's exactly what's going on with this team. Obviously, in an era where mental health is a much bigger thing than it ever has been, and it should be. I'm not trying to downgrade it by saying that. I'm in favor of putting, I guess, normalizing mental health issues. But it wouldn't surprise me if there are some things that on occasion, if a player's in his own head, that's hard to get out of. I mean, nobody likes to deal with anxiety or those kinds of things. And I don't know who would be dealing with something like this. I'm not trying to assume, but you can't really take that stuff off of the table this day and age, I wouldn't think. No,
you can't. I mean, you don't know what these players are thinking. You don't know what they're going through. I mean, there's a lot of different factors. I think one of the interesting things and about this era, and we don't talk about, like, back in the day, we didn't have access to social media. We didn't have access to the players' everyday lives. But, like, we will talk about Tamar Bates' struggles, right? But he's also a parent.
Absolutely.
So, like, that's something that, we can criticize how he's playing on the floor. We have no idea what's happening at home. I mean, we have no idea what's going on in his daily life. And sometimes that stuff transitions to the core. And I know people don't like to talk about it. They're like, well, you signed up to play basketball. You're getting scholarship money. You're getting NIL money, yada, yada, yada. But, like, this is why I said, a few weeks ago when Jim was talking about these guys got to bring it every night, like, you are not going to bring it 30 to 32 games. You're just not going to have it. Like, sometimes you go into work pissed off. Sometimes you go, sometimes you have a bad day. Players aren't exempt from that just because they're playing basketball, because they're playing a game. Sometimes you just don't have it. And I think that that's sometimes things that get lost. I'm not going to say that anybody's battling any mental health issues. I don't know enough about anything like that, but there are aspects of their daily life. And again, I don't care how good the training is. I don't care how good the nutrition is or anything like that. When you have to log the amount of minutes in the Big Ten and you have to overcome a 1-4 start to your season, you've got a depleted roster because of the injury to Xavier Johnson, and Race Thompson has been in and out. Trace Jackson Davis earlier in the season was in and out with his back. This team this has been a rough season. So I think that two things can be true. I think you can be disappointed with how they played last night and at times disappointed with how this season has looked. No question about it. But I also think you can look back and say, at the end of this season, I think you're going to say, you know what? We didn't win the Big Ten, but this team took a huge step in the right direction. Like, under Archie Miller, they were stuck in the mud. They could not, at no point in his era did you ever feel like this team was making progress or making improvement. This team looks like it's making improvements throughout the course of the season. Are they going to have a stumble here and there? Absolutely. Like I said earlier, every team has had that, especially this season. But I think once the season's over, you're going to step back and say, for most of the season, that was a really fun Indiana team to watch.
I think Five Lefts has a good comment here. He says, like Dustin said, everyone has had games like that this year. Fans got to stop giving up or losing all faith in the team after every loss. I got to say, Five Lefts, you are consistently one of the most faithful fans during the difficult losses. There's been multiple times when I've made comments talking about disappointment, and it seems like every time you've never lost faith in this team. And every fan base needs fans like that. So good for you, Five Lefts. And it looks like our old buddy Jim Coyle's here from the Combine. Do you hear us, Mr. Jim?
Oh, yes. Can I ever hear you? I've been here for an hour. I've done more than.
I'm going to stop you right there. You sound like you're underwater. I don't know if you know that, but you sound like you're underwater.
Well, that's because I bet I don't now.
How's that?
There we go. He's
now
here
we're
with
good.
us now.
Now we're cooking with Crisco.
Now we are cooking with Crisco. Well, I'm going to hand the car keys over to you.
I have never
now.
walked this much in my life. I arrived very early. I got up at 5:30 this morning so I could be plenty early because I had to pick up credentials, and it's a new deal. Legitimately, never walked this much in my life. Just in the parking garage first was, I don't know, that was 20 minutes. And then another 25 minutes to 30 trying to find the credential pickup, which was walking around the gigantic Indianapolis Convention Center.
Oh,
you could run 1,000 head of cattle in here and not see them.
yes.
It's big. But hey, it ain't about me, right? How's everybody doing? Welcome aboard Indiana Sports Speed Radio, coming to you here on this fine. It is going to be a fine Wednesday as well. 71 degrees in central Indiana. So going to be an absolutely gorgeous day. And, I came up to the Combine to try to, throw a little something extra into the show. We're always trying to give everybody the best of what we could give them, and no matter what it is. I know everybody wants to talk about IU basketball, but there's a lot more to it, and the show's about a lot more than that. We got to keep it rolling, but it's something cool to be able to come to because Indianapolis has hosted this thing for a long time. There's talk of it being moved, which would suck now that I'm coming here, because this is a big time event. Every NFL head coach and GM are here. Right. They're going to be speaking. Cam Jones, I'm going to try to get him on. He's speaking at the podiums tomorrow. Indiana linebacker. So there's that going on, and it's just that, and it's just NFL stuff. But I'm sure you guys talked about the wonderful game last night that took place at Simon Scott Assembly Hall, the boat race. I don't even know where to start with it. Mike Whitson was pissed off. Let's just say that. John, I hope you run the question the first answer that he gave to the first question.
Oh, well, don't worry. I'll get that taken care of for us.
Yeah, and then the question I asked him as well. Let's see. Now we're not good. We're good for a break for another 10 minutes, right?
Bingo.
So that's a yes. Cool. The Big Ten standings. Indiana now has, once again, I hate to say this, but they pissed away an opportunity. But I don't know what they could have done differently to win that game last night other than, well, the one thing that aggravates me most of all is two things. They just never seemed to focus on getting to these perimeter shooters and shutting them down. Number one. Number two, how many 3-point shots did Indiana put up the whole damn game?
Was the final tally 8?
Something like that. You're down 21.
Yeah.
You're down 21 points, and and they keep hitting threes, and you're just trading. I was a little late getting to the game, so I was able to listen to Fish and Fran McCaffrey talking before the game, and he was talking about the Michigan State game that they had just won, where they had shot the lights out there. And he said, well, it came down to it. They were willing to settle trading twos for threes, and that worked out great for us. Well, that's exactly what Indiana did. I mean, Iowa came out with that blitz, which no big deal. It's stuff that happens early on. You've always got time to rectify that. But they stayed in the rhythm. They didn't do anything to disrupt that rhythm. They just kept getting. Now they were knocking the crap out of shots too. Now I'm telling you, everything that they were putting up was going in. They were hitting shots. You have to credit them. This is not something that just happened last night. They're playing really well. Hell, they're tied for second. I believe. Who isn't tied for second? Are you tied for second?
I am tied for second, yes. I mean, you look at it, I just looked it up because towards the end of the game, they were 1 for 8, so they must have gotten another one somewhere. They finished 2 of 11.
Are you talking about Indiana?
Indiana shot.
They hit 2. Caleb Banks hit 1 toward the end of the game.
Yeah, so they had
But that 11, was in mop-up time.
They had 11 attempts.
So they had 1 3-point shot in the entire game. Of consequence.
Right.
Of consequence. But you're not trying to – I don't understand. You've got Miller Kopp. You've got Trey Galloway. You've got Jalen Hood-Schifino. Hell, you've got Tamar Bates. And all 4 of those guys were on the floor at one point toward the end of the game. And I remember sending out a tweet, hey, Indiana's got some shooters on the floor, and that's exactly what they need. They have got to score points.
Right.
They can't just keep running this, high-low, Trey Jackson. Okay, we got 2 more points. Great. Yep. Iowa goes right down and hits a 3. They don't waste any time. I mean,
Iowa made 13 3-pointers, so they made more threes than Indiana attempted for that game.
So by far.
I mean, that's the difference right there. They made 11 more threes.
Iowa is peaking kind of like they did last year at this time, if you remember.
Yep.
Did they not win the Big Ten tournament last year?
They did.
So here they are again, peaking at the right time. And they're doing it with they've got a really good player in Chris Murray.
Mm-hmm.
They've got some solid players with those McCaffrey kids, but there's no superstar. I mean, Murray's really, really good.
Right.
But I'm like, Indiana's got Trace Jackson Davis and Jalen Hood-Schifino. They don't have that, but they got guys that are just knocking down shots, looking to take shots, willing to take shots. Indiana doesn't. I don't want to. Well, I will. I'm not doing it to get on him, but Miller Kopp. He deep into the game. I know he was like 2 for 4. But that was all 2-point shots. Did not attempt a 3, at least maybe until late into the game. If he did at all, maybe just 1. Why is he not trying to get shots up? He's never.
Yeah, I don't know what the deal was, but there was a hesitancy last night with some of the guys. I think. I think they shot what's interesting to me, John, would be they shot the ball so well against Purdue, and it just seemed like they were hesitant, like they were missing shots. So it makes you wonder, like, were they hesitant because the shots weren't going in? Like, what was the difference? Because they had no hesitancy against Purdue, and Iowa's not really a defensive juggernaut by any stretch. Like, but the big thing for Iowa is they're kind of like Arizona. If they start hitting shots, they are almost impossible to beat. Like, if you're not going when they're on, you've got to score with them because you're not going to be able to defend them.
Yeah, it's tough. I think Jim's back with us. Jimbo?
I didn't plug my computer in.
It's a problem.
Oh, my goodness gracious, man. I knew this was a bad idea. Again, trying to do as much as I can to bring as much as I can to people. But, man, this was just probably a little overextension this time of year with the tournaments. The Big Ten women's basketball tournament is – hell, it starts today.
Yeah.
I don't know who those teams are that are playing that. We'll have to pull that up. Probably Minnesota might be one.
Don't worry, Jim. I got you covered here. The first slated games is going to be Penn State, Minnesota, and then Northwestern Rutgers. That's at 2 and 4:30 today. Both those on BTN, and then everything. I think the whole tournament's on BTN actually. And then obviously Indiana doesn't play till Friday. Thursday, Michigan State, Nebraska, and then Purdue, Wisconsin are the 2 setup, and then Michigan will play, and Illinois will play. So you got.
I didn't hear you say that again.
Tonight you got Penn State, Minnesota, and Northwestern Rutgers at 2 and 4:30 on BTN. Then there's 2 set matchups for Thursday, and that's Michigan State, Nebraska at 12:30, and Wisconsin, Purdue at 6:30. And then Michigan and Illinois will wait to see who they'll play. The winners of the 2 games today.
Who all is playing?
Did he just miss it again?
He did just miss it again. For the
my
third,
earbuds were out, man.
everybody for the third time now. Penn State and Minnesota, Northwestern and Rutgers.
Yeah. Boy, I can't wait to watch those games. But tomorrow you'll have Ohio State in action, who is probably the team that Indiana will play. No?
No,
they have a double bye.
They got a double bye.
They have a double bye.
Indiana plays the winner of Michigan State, Nebraska.
Okay. Then that feeds into Ohio State, I think.
Yeah. I don't know. Okay.
And Iowa and Maryland are on the same side of the bracket.
Yes, because they were 2 and 3. Yeah.
And Maryland's a better team, much better. That's why they beat them by 28 at Maryland. I expect Maryland to beat Iowa. I think it's going to be a Maryland-Indiana Big Ten championship, which will be it should be a hell of a game.
Well, either way they match up, whether it's Indiana, Maryland, or Indiana, Iowa. I mean, those have been pretty good games, so it should be. Assuming Indiana doesn't slip up, it should be a fun championship game to see.
Talking about last night's game, the defense, there are too many times, and I got to be careful with the words I use. I don't want to say quit, but almost acknowledge defeat before the game is over. Is that a politically correct way of saying what I'm trying to say?
Well, I mentioned this earlier in the show, in that first segment, that at one point in the game, I think there was like 5 or 6 minutes to go, and Robbie Hummel, who was on the call, made the comment, it doesn't look like Indiana thinks they can win this game. And granted, again, they were down like 18 points at that time, but this is just a few days after Iowa made a surging comeback to overcome an 11-point deficit with a minute to play. I mean, if you can get that thing to 10 or 12 points at the under 4, make a little bit of a run, give yourself a chance, give yourself some hope. But, and like I said earlier, I don't like to question kids' effort because nobody's trying to lose. But there was probably, at some point in that game, there was a belief that set in that this isn't our night. We're not going to win this game. And they didn't shoot confidently. They didn't play confidently really for the entire game, but especially, I don't know what, the final 10 minutes probably.
Break.
We've got to take a break. I'm coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios mobile unit here at the NFL Combine for 2023 in Indianapolis. Hello to everybody down listening on our River Rats, listening on the Ref 97.7 ESPN, always the right call. Our Region Rats up in the Northwest Indiana and all across Chicagoland, listening on WJOB 12:30 a.m. and 104.7 FM. Our people down in Marengo on 89.9 as well. And everywhere, wherever you are, we appreciate you guys so much. I know you guys are all around the country and all around the world, which is utterly awesome and amazing and fun for us, by the way. So we've got lots more coming up. Brought to you by Goat Team. Don't forget, for those that are on the go, whether it's you, your kids, your team, it's tough to find tasty snacks that taste good for you. Goat Team, full of protein powder with multiple flavors that are incredible. Very good. Back with more. You can pick them up at GoTeamBites.com or at your favorite place, BB's Market. Back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Golfers, this was the dumbest thing I've ever done.
Did I not try telling you that a couple of days ago? This wasn't a good idea.
I knew it was not a good idea yesterday, but I was already committed because I was credentialed, and you don't get credentialed to the NFL and not show up.
Well, Dustin, you're muted, by the way. I don't know if you know that.
My bad.
But it was the wrong call. I can tell you that.
Hey, sometimes you live and you learn.
Are the interviews
too much
in the
going on right now?
Are the interviews in the convention center?
Well, those guys will be speaking. Like, you know how it is at media days when you got the breakout podiums?
Right.
I think it's going to be similar to that.
Really? At Lucas Oil or at the convention center?
I don't know. I doubt it's at Lucas Oil. They're probably just doing all the stuff over at Lucas Oil.
Right. That makes sense.
But yeah,
hey,
it's
keep an eye on too. I don't know if we've talked about this in recently. Antoine Davis is 26 points away from passing Pete Maravich.
Get the F out of here.
26 points. Isn't that insane?
It is, and it is tremendous for him.
I know it's because he's got a 5th year. I know that's the kind of the caveat for it.
Oh, wait a minute. He's got 5 years of scoring?
Right? Am I wrong? I thought he did.
I don't know. We need to look that up because you know how many years of scoring Pete Maravich had?
3.
Was it 4? 3?
3, because freshmen were not even allowed to play. Guess what else? They didn't have a 3-point shot back then, and all he did was shoot from the outside.
Yeah. So
He averaged 44 points a game without the 3-point lane. If it's with the 5th year, that's I call bullshit. Well,
this is his 5th. This is his 5th season.
That's horse shit then. It is. How do you do that?
So he's not going to have him in season average or anything, probably.
Well, no. Pete Maravich averaged 44 points a game with no 3-point line.
It's pretty impressive.
With no shot clock. In the 70s.
Right.
The late 60s, if we're being honest. I just looked at the timeline. It was 67 to 1970.
Oh, when he was at LSU?
Yeah. All right, here we go.
Are you serious? 26 points.
I think it's not very many. He can do it in one game.
A coffee bar, bread, pastries, all made fresh and mouthwatering. Stop by Feast, Market, and Cellar today.
This segment is brought to you by Remax Advanced Realty, Indie Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Wednesday, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios mobile unit as we have moved it to Indianapolis, site of the 2023 NFL Combine. As every team in the NFL, every head coach, every GM here will be speaking. There are, of course, multiple players here trying to latch on to a team, trying to show their wares. Take that Wonderlic test. You need to take the Wonderlic test.
I'm afraid of what my score might be if I tried that. And I don't want people to know how dumb I am. I mean, they get a dose of it pretty much every day, but I don't want to.
They already know how dumb I am.
I don't want to reveal too much behind the curtain if I were to take that. I'm sure it wouldn't go well.
Antoine Davis is averaging 28 points per game.
Pretty impressive.
But if he's had 5 years, that's baloney.
Bull baloney.
That is bull baloney, man. To pass Pete Maravich, that's going to really. I hate that because I'm so happy for Antoine Davis. He was born in Bloomington, man.
Right.
He was an IU rat. But I'm not. No, that's a sacred record that was set in such difficult conditions, and now to use a 5th year, if that is the case. So we got to research that real quick.
I don't have a problem.
That would aggravate me.
I've got no problem.
Of course you don't. Really?
I can tell you're stunned. We've changed we've changed the rules on so many records that I don't see why this one's any different.
Baloney! This is sacred, man. Oh, okay.
In football, they've allowed the bowl statistics to begin to count towards regular season statistics. I mean, baseball with the home run stuff and the steroid era. I mean, it doesn't bother. Like you're not going to stop thinking Pete Maravich is great. Doesn't really change.
Oh, here you go. Phillips said that Antoine Davis averages 28 points per game, like I said, but only averages 24 points against Youngstown State, his next opponent, and likely his last, and his 25 points from tying Pistol Pete.
Wow.
Let me tell you, I don't care what he averages against Youngstown State. Nobody will be shooting that damn ball in that game.
That's
other
true.
than Antoine Davis.
That's true.
He
That's
will
very fair.
He will get 28 points. There is no, if that's his last game, There is no way in hell that thing is not winning. We need to find out when that is. When is their last game? Detroit Mercy.
They're probably in the their conference tournament. Usually the
they could be because they're in the horizon.
This is the conference tournament. That's why the commenter Philip was saying that it could be their last game.
Right.
Wow.
I mean, wouldn't it suck though if you get like within 1 or 2 points and you don't break?
No.
No,
no,
not for you, but as for Antoine Davis.
For him it would be, but at the same time, again, no, you cannot have 5 years, man. These scoring, none of these records are built on 5 years.
Well, what do you want to ask you?
Let me ask you this, Jim, real quick. I already kind of know what you're going to say, probably. So Trace Jackson Davis has a chance to use his 5th year if he wants to.
Yes,
and he's already broken tons of records with his regular 4 years.
I've already said it. It would be atrocious if he came back and destroyed the record book simply because he played a 5th year. That would just, I would hate to see that. Just like I hate to see Pete Maravich's scoring record go by the wayside when he did it in 3 years with no 3-point line. If you do it in 4, that's fine because you can play 4 years from now. Not 5. My God. Just let him play until he pass it. I'm feeling bloody today, baby. You have to start the day that I had.
To a bit extreme there. Well, that's probably fair. It's probably fair.
Yeah, it was.
But I don't. But what do you want him to do though? What?
It's not. I mean, no, it shouldn't count.
But okay, pick
a year and take it. Pick a year. Take your lowest scoring year and take it away. I don't care.
What? Oh.
But you get 4 years. You get to pick 4 years. You don't get 5 years of freaking scoring. Gee whiz. That's just ridiculous. But why the hell are we doing it?
He probably just gets a plaque or something. Like it's not like his life's going to change.
It's not about a plaque. It's not about that. It's about this record has been a sacred record in college basketball for a ton of, and it's still because, and the reason it's so sacred is because of what it is, because it was 44 stinking points a game with no 3-point line and no shot clock. And in 3 years because he couldn't play 4. That's why it's so sacred. He did all that, and to let someone come along and this is like everybody gets a trophy again. Well, just let him play 5 years. Well, hell, let's let him play 6. But Jordan Bohannon played 47 years. Didn't he play like 19 years in college basketball?
Yeah, he was at Iowa for 24 years, I believe, was the final tally. But like, okay, so you just brought up the 3-point line. So that already is an advantage for players now. So what? I don't understand what the huge difference is between that.
It's a whole year. That's the difference. A whole year.
I know that. Okay, I know, but it's not like it's.
But you can't say
it's not like
I don't know what the difference is, and then say, okay, I know it's a whole nother year. That's the difference.
I guess it's just not that big of a difference to me. Like,
I can certainly tell.
You're
one
not.
Of us is
you're
a
not going
conservative person, and one of us is a very giving person. I guess I'll use the word giving.
Giving. I'm not
giving person. Very giving.
I'm not going to get into politics, but
no, I'm not either.
Okay.
But
gotcha.
it's just very giving. I'm old school, man. I'm like, no, earn it. No, you get it. You don't get 5 years to break a freaking record that everyone else has shot at for 40 years with 4 years and haven't been able to do it. So no, you should not be allowed to use 5 years to break a record like that. It's horse crap.
Some guys have played 5 years and still haven't been able to break it. So it's still like nobody thinks less.
That's
of
my
Pete
point.
That's
why it makes so sacred. Oh, Sam, but I agree, Sam. There has to be an asterisk. We got to talk about something more fun. If he breaks it, I'd love to get him on.
So you can diminish his accomplishment.
What's that?
So you can diminish his accomplishment?
No, not diminishing it, but I am saying that it's not the same. It's not this. And let's be honest. Guess what? He's the coach's son. He's had a green light to shoot his entire career.
Oh boy.
He can do whatever he wants. Not everybody else gets that chance. But he obviously does well putting the ball in the bucket.
I was going to say he's the best player on their team.
Granted. I don't have a problem with any of it. Just the 5 years. I'm like,
I feel like you have a problem with all of it.
No, you just don't get the record. Sorry, you don't get the record. That's it.
I don't know how to go with that.
All right, so records are made to be broken. I agree, but you got to do them fairly, man.
But there's no fairness.
And Pete had fewer games. That's right, Sam.
But in fairness, if you were doing it in fairness, you would eliminate – they can't shoot any three-pointers, and they have to do it in 3 seasons.
It's not what I said. That's not you. That is not – see, you're completely saying something I didn't say.
I know.
I know. 4 years is okay because that's where we are now. But they haven't been able to do it in 4 with the three-point shot. So –
But I'm saying total fairness – I'm not saying you said that. I'm saying if you wanted to see a record broken total fairness, those would be the requirements. And that's never going to happen.
Whatever. We've only got 1 game left, or Indiana has 1 game left. I think virtually everybody in the Big Ten is down to 1 game. Not everybody. Michigan, of course, coming into Bloomington this Sunday, and that's senior day for the Hoosiers. You'll find out for certain whether or not Trace Jackson-Davis is coming back, which, of course, I would be shocked if that were the case. Tonight, Maryland is on the road. Maryland does not play well on the road, but they are playing against Ohio State.
Right.
But you never know.
Ohio State just beat Illinois.
And they had Purdue beat, except for a last-second shot. But so, yeah, you never know. Also, Penn State is at Northwestern. Northwestern is, boy, they've been lights out at home, but they've been really sluggish here of late. Probably a good time for them to get out of that with Penn State, who's kind of so-so. Then things heat up. Michigan's got a tough week, or you can look at it as a tough week or a great opportunistic week because they may be the hottest team in the Big Ten. Tomorrow at 7, they travel to Bloomington, Illinois to take on the Illini, and both of those teams. What did I say?
Bloomington.
Oh, Champaign. Well, it's Bloomington normal. Yeah. They've got everything the same as they try to copy everything. They got the Assembly Hall, Bloomington,
and Memorial Stadium.
And Memorial Stadium. I mean, what a joke is that? But anyway, that Michigan and Illinois, that should be a tussle. Rutgers travels to Minnesota. You never know. That should be a win for Rutgers, and they need it. And Purdue goes to Wisconsin, which I just don't think Wisconsin has the firepower. And Purdue needs to get out of their doldrums.
Right.
And then there's only 1 game on Saturday, middling game, Ohio State at Michigan State. And then Sunday, babe, it is a lockdown day. It starts at noon with number 21, Maryland, at Penn State. That is going to be a tough game for them. And that is a game that they can lose.
Right.
12:30, Illinois goes to Purdue. Purdue should win that, of course. 2 o'clock, Nebraska, who has been playing really well, travels to Iowa. Iowa's been playing sensationally, but do they have a slip? Nebraska's been playing really well.
Right.
4:30, the Wolverines are in Bloomington to take on the number 15 Indiana Hoosiers. 7:30, Northwestern goes to Rutgers. That is going to be another tough game for Northwestern. So, and then Wisconsin's at Minnesota, which won't have any effect. But these other games, Northwestern at Rutgers, Michigan at Indiana, Illinois at Purdue, Maryland at Penn State, all on Sunday. And then before that, Michigan at Illinois. Purdue
It's going to be wild.
And Maryland travels to Ohio State. So I know for a fact I've never seen a season where you're this close to the end of it and you have no clue who's going to be where. The only team we know is Purdue.
Well, I mean, potentially. I mean, it's assuming they win one of the next two. So, I mean, we think we know, but you never know for sure.
John's telling us we have to take a break. When is Kyle up next?
Yes,
John?
He's supposed to be. Sorry.
Beautiful. Kyle Neddenriep from the Indy Star is going to join us next. We'll catch up on this past weekend's Girls State Championships. Bedford picked up one. How about Lanesville? Yes, down in southern Indiana. I'm down in my old stomping grounds, and I have to see, is Angie Hinton still the coach there? I'll have to check that out, and we'll talk about all that and much more, of course, here at coming to you from the Combine, brought to you by our good friends from Remax Realty, Cheryl Sizemore. If you're in the market for a home here in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore and her 2 decades of experience. It could be the difference between you getting the home you want or not. Reach out to her, Cheryl at IndiaHomePros.com. Or if you're down in the Louisville, southern Indiana, Floyd, Clark, Harrison, Scott, Jefferson County areas, Barbara Pop Real Estate Services have served those communities for 3 decades. Reach out to Barbara at barbarapop.com or our buddy Matt Lincoln at barbarapop.com. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
I'm so thirsty.
Morning, Kyle.
Morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Much
Good.
better this week.
Good.
Oh, my God. I've got to get something to drink.
Jim's at the NFL Combine.
I see that. Yeah, that's cool.
Let's see.
I'm going to have to wait.
Can't get a drink?
I don't think I can get there back in time. Everything here is a walk. I'll just leave it at that. Hello, Kyle. How are you doing, sir?
Good. You having fun?
No. It was. I parked in the. I've never done this before, and it's at the convention center. Parked in the parking lot that's part of the convention center, and you're supposed to go upstairs to the second floor. Well, the convention center's across the street, so that took 20 minutes of figuring that out, and then you got to figure out how to get across. And then finally, no one knew where the credentials were, and I asked 8 people who were wearing credentials. Oh no, somebody gave them to me. Oh, great. It was like a 45-minute, but it was the walk. I'm like, I'm like, wow, you could run a cross-country meet in this place.
Yeah, when I covered the national championship, the Alabama-Georgia game, and that went to the completely wrong area for credentials that I was told to go to. And then they're like, no, you got to go across the street and downstairs. And it's like, oh, okay. Well, in the wrong place.
I had no idea that This place is gigantic.
Yeah, my niece plays volleyball, or she used to. They had a big. It was kind of like AAU volleyball down there, and it's like 100 courts in a big area. It's amazing. I didn't realize how big it was either until I saw that.
Crazy. How was last weekend, man? I saw Lanesville.
We're coming back.
Bedford.
Wait and ask him when we're on there. Here we go.
We cook up. The Fresh Fork takes care of all the planning, shopping, and prepping and can even deliver them to your doorstep once a week. That's right. It's the fastest, simplest, and easiest way to avoid decision fatigue. You pick your plan and pick up at BB's Market with no extra charge. So leave the heavy lifting to us and enjoy healthy eating with stocked meals in your fridge. Order online today at thefreshfork.com. Fresh Fork is a proud partner of WOW Network. This segment is brought to you by Feast Market and Cellar. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you here on this Wednesday. It is the 1st of March, man. Kyle Neddenriep, you're bringing in the spring, man. You're bringing in the spring.
That's what I do.
What a hell of a weekend this past weekend. I know Bedford wins the state championship, but they win it in impressive fashion over a Fishers team that just didn't quit. A great game. Lanesville picks up their first ever state championship. So some pretty cool things going on over the weekend.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I wasn't at the girls. Our Brian Henshin, our guy who does most of the girls stuff, was there. But I did get a chance to see some of that Bedford game, and that I covered them the previous week in the semi-state. And Chloe Spreen is a really, really good player. Really impressed by her. She kind of carried them against Lawrence North, and then I think probably a lot of people would pick Fishers to win that championship game, but she and the rest of her, she has other good players on her team too, but she's really going to be interesting to where she'll end up playing, I think, because she's going to be really have some good offers, I think, and excellent player.
Now the boys up next is where are the boys in the tournament right now? Are they in regional play?
No, first night of sectional play was last night. So then
okay.
Tonight is another big night. I was out at Carmel last night for the first night of sectionals, and a lot of great games around the state last night. So yeah, we're into it this week. The big thing about Indiana is when someone gets knocked off in that first game on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, and they're like, oh wow. Or anything like that happen? Any shockers last night? No, there were only two top 10 teams that got beat. Honestly, probably one of the most interesting games. Jennings County took double overtime. They're ranked 9th in 4A, but they had Bedford North Lawrence. You talk about the girls, the boys had a really good team as well, and they were playing some of their best basketball late in the season. They took Jennings County double overtime, but Jennings County wins, and now they'll play Jeffersonville on Friday night. So that's a really interesting sectional down there at Seymour, sectional 15. The biggest game, probably the team, I was at the game last night where Carmel got beat. They were up 9 going into the fourth quarter, and Westfield came back and beat them 43-40. I didn't see that coming. I thought Carmel was up 9 and it held Westfield to 24 points in the first 3 quarters. And then Alex Romack, who's a really nice player for them, for Westfield, had really just kind of started off the fourth quarter and took it to him inside. He's 6'5", athletic kid. And Sam Morum, who's Carmel's top player going to Belmont, he was in foul trouble, ended up fouling out in the last minute and, on a charge that I couldn't see it very well from my angle, but I know it was kind of debated on the Carmel side. But so that was Carmel losing again, and Westfield had knocked them out last year in the sectional championship with Braden Smith and Cam Hafner. They don't have those guys this year, but they still are able to get it done and beat Carmel last night. So that was kind of the big one. Then the second game I had was Jalen Harrelson from Fishers had 33, and they beat HSC. They were down by 1 at halftime. Harrelson had 21 of their 24 points at halftime. And then, they kind of got it going in the second half with some other guys scoring as well. But Fishers went on. They won by 19, kind of pulled away. So, Harrelson and that team will play Friday night against Zionsville, which should be another awesome game. Zionsville's got a couple seniors, Logan Imes included, who's going to Penn State. So that should be a really good one. Then Westfield and Noblesville play on the other side. So you got two really good semifinal games in that sectional 8 up at Carmel Friday night.
Carmel going out and like that is not customary for Indiana high school basketball. Jalen Harrelson, who do you have to think of to think back to a kid that was as advanced as he is? You've got the size that he has is freaky, and he's a damn sophomore. He's got 2 more years, and he's already doing the things that he's doing. Who's he compared to? I mean,
it's a good question. And the fact that
Eric Gordon is a totally different player, more
right.
of a shooter, not a point guard. But I'm like, dang on it, I can't even think of. You got to go all the way back. Do you have to go all the way back to Gardner?
Well, that's even. I mean, Harrelson's 6'6", 6'7", so it's just a totally different.
He's a beast.
Different comparison completely.
He's like Zach Edey as a point guard.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Sort of, yeah. I mean, he but I'm always so impressed. Last night it was like he had to score. He's on a team that's really relatively young. It's totally different from last year where he came in as a freshman with all these seniors at Fishers who had kind of been around for a while, and he kind of fit in and played really well, had a good season. This team, it's more guys who aren't experienced at all. So he's kind of come in now. He's the guy. He's the point guard, and he's got to score because last night all those guys pretty much are playing their first sectional game ever. He's not because he played last year, but so it's just a totally different role for him, which that makes it probably even more impressive. And I don't. I think the other thing about him, and he turns 16 next month. He's not even 16 yet as a sophomore, so that's even more, more impressive. But he plays like a point guard. He doesn't. I don't have the stats here right with me, but he scored 33, but it wasn't like he took 30 shots. He's still passing. He's getting it to the open guy. Taden Metzger, who is their second leading scorer. And he's another player I think to watch, and he's a junior, but really can shoot it. He'll be a good college player, possibly a smaller level, but could be Division I player. But he started getting the ball to him. Metzger had 4 threes in the second half, and I think that kind of shows you he is that point guard that he's not just a scorer. He's not just an athletic guy who's going to take a bunch of shots. He's a guy who's going to get the ball where it needs to be, and then also pick his spots to have an impact on the in the scoring column. But he can go score 30 without it feeling like he scored 30 or took. Some guys you watch, you're like, man, this is like ball dominant city, but he's not that way.
And we got a question from one of our viewers here. Specifically for you, Kyle, comes from Derek. He wants to know, he's going to be in the Plainfield area this weekend for a volleyball tournament. He wants to know good sectional to go to this weekend in that area.
Plainfield's actually hosting, so if you're you can just skip on over to Plainfield High School if that's where you are. Brownsburg and Terre Haute North play, and also Terre Haute South beat Avon. That was kind of a slight upset, I think, last night at Plainfield. They only have a 5-team sectional, so it's there's only 4. There was only 1 game last night, and then they're off until Friday. So Plainfield will play Terre Haute South and Brownsburg Terre Haute North. Both those games, I think, will be pretty good games. So if that's Friday night and then Saturday would be the championship, which I would think could be Brownsburg and Plainfield probably. But Terre Haute North's good, and Terre Haute South, I know they had a really good game last night against Avon. They got a kid named Baker who can really fill it up. So, yeah, that's probably, if you're in Plainfield, that's honestly probably your best bet there, is just go over to the high school.
Yeah, just stop right in. Nothing funner than Indiana high school basketball this time of year, especially if you're at one of the great great venues, whether it's Seymour or Southridge or the Hatchet House. There's so many just great arenas. And I'm assuming they're playing in Hinkle, right?
No, they don't play
Or
there
are they?
anymore. Yeah, that's
No, really.
no. That's probably been
That would suck. I would want to play there just for the the joy of saying, "Oh yeah, I played in Hinkle." It's a cool. I would love if I was in high school. I would love to play in there. I think they should have the. I almost think that they should take the state finals back there. What does it hold?
Gosh, that's a good question. It's less than it used to be, and it's I can't remember exactly what it is now, but obviously that place was built for high school basketball originally. So I agree. I probably only covered maybe 4 regional. They still had regionals there when I started at the Star, and probably covered 4 or 5 maybe, and then. Gosh, it's been probably 10 or 11 years since it's been used for any high school events. So it's been a while. But yeah, I agree with you. There's a lot of great, Carmel, honestly, is a great venue for games. That Friday night will be packed house. I'm sure Sectional 10 over at Warren Central is going to be just going to be an awesome atmosphere. I've got Perry Meridian tonight, Ben Davis and Southport. That should be a fantastic game. And Ben Davis is ranked number 1 and undefeated. Southport's not, they think they're 14-9, but they are very familiar with Ben Davis, and they have the sort of team, veteran, pretty much all seniors. They have some size. They have guards who can shoot it and handle it. And it's going to be an emotional game. So I'm looking forward to seeing that one. That should be a good atmosphere tonight down at Perry Meridian. But yeah, sectional week's so fun because you can pick almost anywhere. Lagodi is going to have, that would be a lot of fun. I think they play Orleans. Will probably be the likely matchup there Saturday night. I guarantee that'll be a sold out venue. So yeah, you can't miss. You wish you could just get to more games, because it's such a fun week. But it's just so packed and everything's happening so fast. That's kind of what makes the week so different and so fun.
Yeah, I can still think back to when I was in high school. At Floyd Central, we couldn't wait. We were going to Seymour. It was going to be a blast. It always was. You played back then. You would play teams that you didn't play, that you didn't see. Now a little bit more mixed in there, somewhat because of the conferences. But it's amazing. In this day and age, when so many things have gone by the wayside. And even though Indiana basketball is not quite what it used to be, it's still the best in the country by far. And it is still a very awesome, viable, and a entertaining product.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely games over the years where I've walked in and been like, what are people talking about? This, it's not there anymore because if you're at the 2018 semi-state at Seymour, I was just talking to Noblesville's coach last night. He was coaching at Morristown at the time. Morristown played Bar Reeve, and you could not even hardly get in the building an hour before the game. And, so there are the 2020 sectional at Lawrence Central was every night, was just completely packed, and so, I know people, it's different or whatever, but there's still awesome atmosphere and a lot of passion for it. And I think our nostalgia probably gets the better of us sometimes too. Not every game in the 1960s was a full, so I think it's part of that too, but it's just, it's still, there's a lot of great basketball out there, a lot of great environments, and, a lot of great moments, and it's fun to be there to document at least some of that.
Yep, and looking forward to it. What's up next for you? I know you got games to hit.
Yeah, it's a pretty game-heavy week. I've got, like I said, Ben Davis, number 1 and undefeated, play Southport tonight, which will be a significant challenge. Honestly, that game, they could win by 30 or it could be overtime. I have no idea what's about to happen there, which kind of makes it fun. And possibly tonight, too, and this game is way off the radar, but Franklin Central plays Perry Meridian in the other game, and Perry Meridian's coach, Mark James, has 599 wins. So they have, I think, only 3 wins all season. But if they can win, that would be 600 for him. So that's kind of on the radar as well. But there's other good games. I posted some of the best of the around the state. If people want to check that out, it's on IndyStar.com. But yeah, it's pretty game heavy. We've got games obviously Friday night and Saturday, so lots of coverage, and then get into some more feature stuff next week again.
Looking forward to it. Make sure you give him a follow and stay up on it, because it is that time of year, whether you're talking about men's, women's, college, or high school. It's tourney time, baby. It's March in Indiana, and Kyle Neddenriep has it all. Make sure you give him a follow. Kyle, thank you, my brother. I appreciate you very much.
You bet. We'll see you, Jim. See you, Dustin.
Thank you, sir. Have a good weekend. Hey, brought to you by our good friends from Metalworks Brewing Company, part of the Endeavor Hospitality Wild Club. You can find the Metalworks Brewers in all of the restaurants like BB's and Southern Stone, Feast, all of those places, or just go right to the source. Right off of 6th Street, right off the square, rather, on 6th Street, you can find Metalworks Brews, where they believe in custom metal art, great breweries, and being a part of the community. We got more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. We might surprise you. We're coming from the 2023 NFL Combine here in Indianapolis. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
If you're looking for a home, you know, it's funny. Sometimes people, for whatever reason, don't respond and forever. Then there's some that respond instantaneously.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
As in the case with Mike Davis. While I'm sitting
I was
here all
wondering,
year
I was
talking,
like, you need to get him on with this stuff going on with Antoine.
there is the king. When's the regular season start?
I think it's like March 30th or something. You'll have to forgive me. I'm in day 4 of COVID, so I'm not on my game.
Oh man!
Oh,
I hate that
brother.
for you.
That's not
Is that
good.
is that a first?
It's my first, man. I outran it for 3 years and finally caught me on
Man.
Sunday.
Wow.
See, that's why I keep saying that. I'm like, and I haven't had another booster for too long, and I just keep forgetting it. Now I'm pushing my luck.
The only time I
gotta go
had
get
it
that
was
damn thing.
January last year, and I only had it really bad for about 24 hours, but I coughed and coughed and coughed for like 3 weeks afterward. It was horrible.
Oh, we're going to talk to Mr. Rick about a certain topic that we talked about earlier. Dustin's not on here right now.
How about that IU game last night?
Nope. Antoine Davis is about to break Pete's record. He's 26 points away. And this is not against Antoine, because I'm happy for him. He was born in Bloomington, but he's played 5 years. This is his 5th season. And Pete did it in 3 without a 3-point line. And I'm like, nope, I'm sorry. I'm like, there is no way I'm allowing that record to stand. There's just, and I don't see how the NCAA does. I mean, you have to put an asterisk. Have to.
Yeah, I mean, funny you mentioned that, because that's something I was thinking about writing for today. It'd be like a 44 asterisk, because you know you can't compare Pete Maravich to Antoine Davis. And like you, I remember Antoine Davis when he was a little kid around the 2002 IU basketball team, and to watch what he's become, been faithful to his dad, stayed there, helped his program. Nothing but admiration for the kid. I'm sure he's a great kid, but it's not
Here we go, guys.
his record. You look at the
In all Endeavor Hospitality restaurants.
Oh, okay.
Come taste with Dr. Hobbs' Brewing, Metalworks Brewing Company. Bring your passion and your thirst.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Wednesday, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios mobile unit here in Indianapolis at the 2023 NFL Combine. I'm getting loose and ready for the 40-yard dash, Rick. I'm getting limber, baby. I'm getting ready to let her go.
40-yard dash to what, the coffee machine or what?
I feel a good 6'2". I think I still have a good 6'2" in me.
I don't think I don't think I've ever run a 6'2" even in my heyday.
I ran my best was a 4.6 back in the day.
Wow.
I couldn't run I don't think I could run a 25 4.6 right now. I would walk it. I would just walk it. I would take Ruby with me and say, "Yeah, just start the clock, baby. Start the clock." Indiana is becoming a kind of Jekyll and Hyde team. Last night was, I don't even know where you start with last night. And obviously Iowa was knocking the crap down out of some shots, but Indiana just never seemed to get into them. They never were able to disrupt their rhythm at all. And worse, Indiana was just content trading 2-point baskets for threes all night when they were behind by 20 points plus. And I'm like, dude, you guys are down 20 and you're still running the ball into the lane. You've put up 8 threes in the whole game. What are you waiting on? They had Tamar Bates, Jalen Hood-Schifino, Trey Galloway, and Miller Kopp on the floor at the same time. And I remember going, okay, now you got some shooters out there. 2-point. And I could not, I don't understand. You have to know that you're in trouble and you've got to do something other than what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, that game was an F for the coaching staff, for the players, for the subs, wherever else you want to put in. They all get an F for that game. And obviously Woodson talked for 2 minutes after the game, and he said it was embarrassing, and he apologized to the fans. And I think if somebody could have asked him the question, like, what would his coach have done if they did like that? They would have been back in Assembly Hall practicing at 11 o'clock until somebody was thrown up.
I was thinking that last night, walking back from the restroom back downstairs. I was thinking that very thing.
It's a different world, and he said, well, they won't practice tomorrow. They'll practice. They look like a team that they won the national championship by beating Purdue on Saturday, and they were just going to walk in and beat Iowa, and they got embarrassed. And it's alarming. There's several things that are alarming about that game. One is you had a chance to, really firm up a chance to get a double bye in the Big Ten tournament and improve your NCAA standing, threw that away. Two is it's 4 times they played Iowa and Mike Woodson, and I think in all 4 games, Iowa has had its way scoring the ball like that. They have no clue on how to slow Iowa down. 80
points in every one of those losses or more.
Yeah. They have no clue on how to defend Iowa, and that's concerning. And 3 is it's a when they get beat. I mean, how many games have they gotten beat like that this year? I mean, they got beat bad by Michigan State. They got beat bad by Rutgers. They got beat bad by Kansas. They got beat bad by Arizona. They got beat bad last year by St. Mary's in the NCAA tournament. That's not good. And guys putting T-shirts for sale from the celebration of the Purdue locker room who aren't guarding their man getting to the hole whenever he wants to. So focus on what's important and sell the T-shirts after the season. That's the old school me coming out, but it's like, you haven't accomplished anything yet. When you accomplish something, then you go sell some T-shirts. But right now, you haven't accomplished anything.
Yeah, you wait till the season is over because business continues to be in front of them. And I even asked Trace Jackson Davis if there was any kind of a hangover, and he said, his answer was no. But I don't agree with that. I mean,
they didn't guard him. They didn't guard him at all. And Race Thompson can't guard Chris Murray. How many times have we seen it? Chris Murray, I believe, last year at Iowa City went off on Indiana, didn't he? Didn't he have a big game the Indiana last year in Iowa City? Because the other Murray, I guess, might have gotten foul trouble, and he had to come in, and he went on. He can't guard him. He didn't have any intensity to guard him last night at all. You can't let some guy just get comfortable at the 3-point line and sit there and keep making threes without deny him the ball, do something. And then when they did extend the defensive pressure, then Hood Schifino got back cut, at least 3 times in the first half. It was a bad performance. It really was. And if they have any pride, because Michigan's going to come in there on Sunday, and Michigan's on the bubble, and Michigan's going to come in there and play hard. And if Indiana plays like that again, they're going to lose again.
Well, Michigan may be playing as well as Iowa, and Michigan may be playing as well as anybody in the conference right now.
Right.
And Iowa, I said the same thing last year. They were peaking at the right time, man, and they're doing it again. Here's a comment by Jason that kind of reminds me of something I was going to say. He says the 3 losses that Indiana has aren't just because they are playing poorly or not executing. You can tell they aren't ready or become disinterested during the game. Recurring problem. Something I said earlier. I did not use the word quit, but it looks like they are okay with resigning themselves to defeat before the clock runs out. If I was trying to be politically correct as possible, but it just seems like they're just going to run the clock out or whatever.
Yeah, I didn't see anybody really that took offense. I mean, Iowa was actually rubbing it in their face, really. I mean, I saw a couple plays where there was a charging call on Indiana, and there was an Iowa player on court making the referee's call like the charging call, and they're hitting threes and taunting the crowd, and Indiana they took it the whole game. It was an alarming performance, and I think that the thing is, people talk about, well, they just had a big win on Saturday and back on Tuesday. Hey, guess what? When you get in the NCAA tournament, you only have 1 day between games. You have to learn to forget what you did the day before and move on to the next game. And we all saw that Mike Woodson told them after the game, this doesn't mean anything. Celebrated on the bus on the way home and then get ready for the next game. And they did do it. And that's happened a number of times. It happened last year after they beat Purdue, and then they lost to Michigan at home. It's happened a number of times. And you just have to have – they don't have guys on that team who are in the leadership positions who are holding other guys accountable, saying, hey, you got to come out and play hard tonight. It was just obvious to me that they, after beating Purdue, everybody told them how great they were. Everybody wrote about how great they were, and they believed it. And they didn't – and Iowa had a big win. You know, early they had, in many ways, a bigger win. And older team, they came out and they brought it to Indiana.
Well, to me, one of the concerning things, interesting things, however you want to phrase it, was the fact that Indiana shot the ball so well against Purdue on the road, and then they looked really hesitant. Like you'd think against Iowa, a team that doesn't defend very well.
Jalen Hood-Schifino shot the ball really well against Purdue.
Well, but I mean,
Galloway did too.
Yeah, Galloway hit some big shots. Miller Kopp hit some big
shots.
They
helped.
They were at least confident when they were shooting. It didn't look like anybody wanted any part of shots last night outside of Trace Jackson Davis. Like, it's just, to me, that's probably more concerning. And I don't know whether that's players or whether that's poor game strategy. But in that sort of situation, you think they're gonna give us some open shots. I just didn't think guys they didn't look as confident as they did on Saturday. I don't know if that was the hangover effect, or I don't know if that was poor game planning.
Yeah, I sense sometimes, like, you know, they missed. Schifino missed his first few. Galloway missed the 3 early. Kopp missed his first 3, I know. And those guys seem to be in a position sometimes that whether they hit or miss their first shot dictates how confident they're going to be the rest of the way. And they didn't make them. And that game was 8-0 before, in the first minute? It was like that. I mean, they didn't guard Chris Murray on the first 2 threes. I mean, he's going to come out. I mean, it was obvious that he was shooting with confidence, and Woodson did call timeout. I'm pretty sure after it was 8-0, he called a 30-second timeout, and I'm sure he said, "Hey, you know, play some defense, but it didn't happen. So, and they got nothing off the bench again. I mean, Bates has really been, he had one or two games in the last 10. He really hasn't developed into the player that I think that most people thought he would become. He came in last night and made a turnover like right off the bat, and Woodson pulled him out of the game. And he was on the floor at the very end with Childress and some of those guys. So that kind of was an indication of where he is in the rotation in my mind.
Yeah, and that's not good for this time of year because we're one game left in the regular season, which is nuts for a couple of reasons. Take a look at the freaking Big Ten standings. One game left, and you do not know where, I don't know, how 5, maybe 6 teams are going to actually end up.
Right.
It is absolutely, and Indiana, like you said, had they've had multiple opportunities. It's not just this one. The 21-point lead they lost against Iowa the first time. There's been a few others. Northwestern at home.
They didn't come out with any intensity. Yeah, I mean,
they've had opportunities.
At Penn State, where Penn State threw in 17 threes and beat. And we've seen a string of teams
not guarding the perimeter and not having the desire to try to change that when you see that it's happening. That's the lack of adjustment. I don't know if that's on Woodson or who that's on, but that falls to somebody. There has to be an adjustment made to deal with that, or Iowa will do what they did to you last night. They'll just keep knocking them down.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to happen occasionally. Teams are going to get hot and make threes, and then there's going to be games, Purdue didn't three game before at home in Mackey Arena where they're usually pretty comfortable. So you give Indiana credit for playing good defense in that game because they did. But, when you get in a game like last night, now what more concerning to me, as I said, is this 4 straight games when they played against Iowa where Iowa has dictated the way the game's going to be played. They hit a bunch of threes like that to beat them last year in the Big Ten tournament in Indianapolis. Remember that? I mean, how many threes did they hit in that game? Bohannon hit the one at the end to win the game, but Murray was hitting them in that game and other guys. It's like they don't have – I don't think they just don't have the personnel at some positions to do that. Rex Thompson is not a great defender away from the basket against a guy like Murray. He's not enough. He's not mobile enough to do it. And when he's not really engaged in doing it, then it becomes what you saw last night. And Kopp, as we've seen multiple times, the really good teams in the Big Ten, when they try and get a matchup with somebody who can drive the ball against Miller Kopp. And they get that. They drive the ball against Miller Kopp, and they usually score. Right?
Absolutely. And I just that's not going to work for the long haul in the NCAA. There are just too many good teams. They're going to run up against too many good defenses and offenses. And especially if it's a team that can shoot, Indiana has just not shown that they can bottle. They've stopped Purdue, but those are freshman guards. They were able to really pressure them both times, which is great. But, man, against Boo Buie and Northwestern, they got tore up. So they have got to find a defensive perimeter game somewhere because it's really showing, and people are just shooting at will now. And if they're hitting shots, they're going to beat Indiana. Mm-hmm. They just refuse to shoot threes. I don't get it. They're what, like 12th to 16th, something like that, of efficiency in the country, but they're also like 16th from the bottom in 3-point field goal attempts.
In usage. Yeah. I mean, they're so conditioned to playing through Trace Jackson Davis and Hood Schifino and picking, but it's not the bread and butter of the offense. And they have had 20-win season. They've had a lot of good victories, so it's been successful. But, at some point, that is part of it's a weapon you have to have, I think, to be a elite team. They're not an elite team. They're a team, to me, their ceiling is going to be a Sweet 16. They can maybe get to the Sweet 16. I don't see them getting any far. And if they got beat in the first or second round, that wouldn't surprise me either.
A lot of people asking about X, which I stayed away from because it's pointless. I'm like, if he comes out, when I see him on the floor, I'll see him on the floor. But because I'm like, I'm not worried about it. It's why worry about it? You can't do any. Fans can't do anything about it. He'll play when he plays. I don't know, because I don't know exactly what shape he's in, what he would be able to do, if he would be able to lend a hand defensively. We just don't know. And then again, we talked about what's that going to do to the current chemistry, which they didn't have a lot of chemistry last night. So that kind of goes by the wayside. But I don't know if he comes back or not. I personally don't think he does, but I don't know what shape he's in. So I really don't.
I would say the best you could hope is he could come back as a bench guy who could play 4 or 5 minutes, and that might be valuable in a game or two, but he's going to have to do it pretty soon. I mean, he's going to have to do it either Sunday or, next weekend in the Big Ten tournament. I mean, there's no other – I'm not sure you can throw him in the NCAA tournament without using him at all. I can't see where he could be a guy who can play major minutes. With a foot injury, you don't know. I would think, knowing what the kind of competitor he is, that he would want to if he can. I think he would absolutely want to. There's no reason. It's not like he's going to say year of eligibility. He's got nothing left. This is it. This is his farewell.
Yeah, everybody keeps saying take a red shirt, or I'm like going, he's done, man. This is it. He's out of here. Yeah. It's over.
Yeah, he's played 5 years already, right? I don't even know if he could get it.
Because he transferred. Yeah, and I think he set out for that transfer. That was before the rule came in.
I don't remember, but he doesn't. He's had 5 years, I'm pretty sure, and I don't know what the rule is. I'm not sure if he's already played too many games to make a medical redshirt out of the question. So, and as he's like 23, isn't he? I would think he's ready to move on.
Yep. How about our buddy Joe Hinton? Got him another state championship.
Amazing. Congratulations to the Hintons.
Floyd Central when I was in high school. And I've always said that he cracked me up. When he was coaching, there was no difference between him and Bob Knight. I've never seen anybody he could just get nuts. He got 5 technicals in a game once against Providence. You only get 2 before you get tossed. He got 5. But off the court, greatest guy ever. And he's been assisting his wife, Angie, for years. She won a state championship at New Albany. Right. And now they just won one for Lanesville, their first. So that's very, very cool. So I just want to, and him and their daughter Hallie are assistants. So it's very, very, very.
I remember. The first time I saw Joe Hinton coach a team was he coached the Floyd Central Super Hicks in the 1970s.
Oh wow, you saw that?
Yeah, I went to that state finals in Hinkle. They played East Chicago, Washington. Gave them a heck of a game too. That was a great East Chicago team.
East Chicago had all the Pete Turgovich, Mel Stoddard, Junior Bridgman, who went to Louisville, and then Floyd Central was good too. They had Jerry Schellenberg went to Wake Forest. Keeping it right, I'm not sure where he went, but I think Tom Schellenberg went to Alabama. But they probably would have won a state championship. Yes, yeah. If they had not have had to run up against possibly the greatest team ever. Timing's everything. Someone put up this little stat a minute ago, Bill. Antoine, 142 games, Pete, 83. Dustin, jump back into this argument. Dustin's all about that it's – I am like adamant.
No.
No way you count this as you can't do it. And now you add this to it.
I'm just saying I don't care that much. It doesn't affect my life anyway. It doesn't affect anybody's life anyway.
Now you're not making the discussion any fun.
Nobody makes – I'm just saying, like, it's not like his life's going to change all that much if he owns the scoring record or not. Nobody's going to think worse of Pete Maravich as a basketball player. And we changed the rules of all the other records.
It's a cherished rule that should not – if it's going to be broken, it should be broken.
But that goes back to my point. Then nobody, if you truly break the record, then you have to shoot nothing but
No, that's not
and
true.
you can only play
They
3
can-
years.
No, that's that. I didn't say that. But you have to be within.
I
the
didn't say you
framework
said
of
that.
Current. Nobody else is going to get to play 5 years. That's the thing. It's a stupid COVID thing, and you should not allow COVID to wreck record books, in my opinion.
Here's what I'll say. It's a generational thing for people that grew up playing, becoming college basketball fans of the time when I did. Pete Maravich, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, then Lou Alcindor, Rick Mount, Calvin Murphy, all those dudes are iconic figures who did things to help really make college basketball popular. They helped grow the game, and it was a different time, different style of play back then, where he's playing for his dad and he got to jack up all the shots he wanted to, but he was a showman. But to compare Pete Maravich, who averaged 43 or 44 points a game for 3 years, to this guy who I know Mike Davis, I know Antoine Davis, he's a fine player. I mean, he wouldn't start for that LSU team. I mean, he wouldn't be on. He'd be a sub, and to put him in the record book next to an iconic guy like that, like, I don't know, it kind of like stains the record book. So put him in a back section with like 44 asterisks.
Put him in a COVID section. Create a
Pete
COVID
Maravich
section.
Pete Maravich is my all-time favorite college basketball player. So it's certainly a hot topic with me of like, come on, man, you're not Pete. You couldn't guard Maravich for 1 second.
He's not mine, but I feel the exact same way. I'm like, nope, you can't do it. Can't do it. Create a COVID section of records. Here's the COVID records. Here are the COVID.
I'm not even
What's
getting
up
into the 3-point thing because I don't remember.
I'm like, he only played 3 years because you couldn't even play as a freshman, right?
Yeah.
3 years and no 3-point shot. Yeah, magical. What is up next for you, man?
Get healthy first of all, but then
oh yeah, that's right.
This weekend Louisville plays its final game against Virginia. Kentucky on the road, Arkansas, and Indiana's home Sunday against Michigan. So those are the conference tournaments next week. Are you going to Minnesota? No, it's not. The women are. When do the women play? Friday?
It starts. Yeah, IU's women won't play until Friday. The tournament starts today. Up at Santa's workshop, where I'm sure there will be very few fans and very few media. Unfortunately, sadly,
sports is such a I don't know, dynamic, delightful, disgusting, dramatic thing where, at Indiana, there's the excitement of sweeping Purdue, and then it's immediately washed away by Caitlin Clark and that performance. So then, like, Iowa has the bragging rights over Indiana, right? I mean, the window of joy or celebration is slammed shut quick. Yeah,
fleeting.
It's over in what, 2 weeks? I mean, 2 weeks from tomorrow will be Indiana's first NCAA tournament game. So it doesn't last long. If you come out and have a performance, anywhere close to the performance they had last night, you'll go home after one game.
We've got to let you go, but that kind of is, and I know people want to blame it on the travel last year against St. Mary's, but there were other teams that traveled and actually won. I was going to say, I thought Notre Dame was one of them. So you just have to have the mindset. Hey, we've got to do whatever it takes to try to win this game. I've seen them do it sometimes, and I've seen them not do it, and it's night and day. Rick, I can't thank you enough, man. Appreciate you. Go out and enjoy the great weather.
All right. Thank you, guys. Have a good week.
You bet.
Talk to you next week.
Bozich, the best from WDRB.com joining us. Are you out, Dustin?
Nope, I'm good.
Are you? Okay, good. We've got more coming up to finish up. Dustin Schutte with me, Jim Coyle. We're coming to you from the NFL Combine here at 2023 in Las Vegas and Indianapolis. Got too many cities in my brain right now. Brought to you by Cabello. Get the taste and sounds and traditions of Southern Italy, right here in Southern Indiana. Cabello, located on the square in Bloomington. Great Italian fare. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Isn't it funny we're at the NFL Combine and we haven't said a word about the NFL?
Yeah.
By the way, I've got the Mike Woodson stuff. I've got the bleeped out version of the.
See, I should have just not come here today and come here tomorrow. That's what I should have done.
Yeah, you'll have Matt Taylor on tomorrow, which would have been good timing and stuff with that.
Well, he'll be here.
Well, there you go. Go find him today and tell him to come in person tomorrow.
Or I'll have to go over to where he is.
Either way.
Which I was already thinking that. I'm like, oh, I can just come over to you, bro.
Excuse me.
Yeah, I've got your question, Jim, and I've got the question where he said the comment, the expletive.
Yeah.
Bleeped out.
That's the first one, baby. That's the one.
Which one?
Oh, you bleeped it out?
Yeah, I don't like texting saying because it's different with WJOB now. They use the Facebook feed to convert to MP3.
I know that. I was hoping you would bleep it out after the fact.
It's easier to do that whenever we didn't have WJOB, but it's different now. So I try not to have any issues like that.
Okay.
Da-da-da.
Okay. I'm easy. I'm easy. This drove me in. This just put me in a bad mood from the start today.
You've had a good show, I think.
I know it just because usually it's because I'm not early enough. I was here more than early enough.
It just took forever.
Got screwed. The walking, dude. I have never walked so far in my life inside.
All right, here we go.
Located at the corner of Patterson and Rogers in Bloomington, offers a variety of freshly made fare, tying their roots in limestone with their love of Southern eateries. With quality, local, and organic food as their main focus, Southern Stone strives to always provide their guests with an exceptional dining experience. With weekly specials, quick, attentive service, Southern Stone Restaurant provides delicious 5-star comfort food with a Southern charm at 2-star prices. Southern Stone Restaurant is part of Endeavor Hospitality's Wow Club.
This segment is brought to you by Courtroom Sports Grill in Bedford. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, here on this Wednesday, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios mobile unit. We're here in Indianapolis at the 2023 NFL Combine. National Football League. Every head coach, every general manager here will be speaking over the next couple of days. Innumerable number of players trying to find their spot in the league. Cam Jones, one of those guys from Indiana. He's up on the podium tomorrow for all of that. It goes through the weekend. There's some stuff that's open to the public as well that you can go to. So just look that up online. Just a terrible game last night. But seriously, you cannot. The fact that they just seemed like they were resigned too early. They just didn't have fight. And you're at home. And again, I go back to Mike Woodson saying specifically when they were at Purdue this was in the availability after that, but that Indiana has to win this game to validate the victory in West Lafayette.
Right.
I don't know how true that is.
Well, they didn't have to
Purdue
win.
is a team that Indiana knows how to defend.
Right. I just think you wanted it to, even if you lose, you wanted it to look better than it did last night. I mean, and part of it is
you want to look like you're trying to win.
Well, I don't question their effort. I think nobody's trying to lose a basketball game. Part of it is I think there was a hangover effect. Part of it is it was just Iowa's not like they were not missing anything. And it was just a lethal combination. We've seen this from every basketball team at some point this season. It's just frustrating from the Indiana standpoint because they've had a few more of them than some of the other teams. And when you look at the expectations they had coming into the season, you just didn't expect, especially after such a big win, them to lay an egg like they did in a home game with a lot on the line.
Well, Jason says that last night's game is what separates Indiana from the elite teams, and that is dead on. That is why.
Yeah, but I mean, even the elite teams have gone through this season.
No.
Alabama got smoked by Oklahoma.
Getting beat in a game is one thing. This is not the first and only time it's happened in Indiana. Yes, sir.
No, well, I had an additional thing to say about what Dustin was saying because Oklahoma, they're not even good. Iowa's a good team. Oklahoma's not good.
Right.
Oklahoma's in the Big 12.
I'm okay. Yeah, the Big 12 is good, but even if you have a losing record, that shows that you're not as good as you think Oklahoma would be. That's had the same record as Iowa in the Big 10.
Wait a minute. So West Virginia's not good?
West Virginia is overrated, but they're good.
I agree with John on this. You can't be whatever their record is.
I'm not saying they're elite, but anyway, getting back to this point, yes, this does separate. Indiana is not an elite team, but that's not something that we didn't already know. They don't have the pieces to be an elite team. They don't have shooters. They don't have guys that will shoot. They have shooters, but they don't have guys that will step up and shoot the ball enough. You're a 50% three-point shooter. You need to be looking for every shot you can get. You're a 46% three-point shooter. You need to be looking for every shot you can get. And I've said this a ton of times, but I've noticed that when Miller Kopp is bounding around, if that's the three-point line, instead of him, moving and hitting a spot like right here, he hits a spot way back here, way too far back behind the three-point line that it's not a shot. So he's always looking. But if he was hitting a better spot, that could be an option for a shot or to pass. He's 6'7". Jump up and take a jump shot. He has to be set. That's the problem. He's got to be set and all of that. And Indiana doesn't really have a guy that can just shoot off successfully, shoot off the dribble besides Jalen Schifino, but he's not always consistent from three. But they just don't have a guy that can shoot off the dribble.
Right. I agree with
Iowa had 4 of those guys last night.
Makes a big difference.
And all firing away, and they're not afraid to shoot. They're all letting it fly. If you don't have confidence in yourself, nobody's going to. And if you don't have confidence, if you're a 51% free throw shooter and you don't have confidence in yourself, we got some issues.
Right.
If you're a 46% 3-point shooter and you don't have confidence in yourself, got some issues. Yeah. Especially when your team that's exactly what the team needed. Didn't get it.
especially after they shot so well just a few days ago. I don't know if it was just because of the poor start or what it was, but it looked like there were some confidence issues with that team in that particular game.
Yep, looking fun. But the women's Big Ten tournament, as we've said, that starts today. Indiana will play Friday. Who'd you say they play? Winner of the Michigan State?
Winner of Michigan State, Nebraska.
Nebraska. So I think that is – I'm trying to remember what time that game was. They played the first game, I believe, don't they?
Yep. I believe it's a 12:30 tip-off.
All right. Well, we'll keep you updated on that. Man, I can't thank everybody enough today, as always. Especially big thanks to John, the producer, and Dustin for getting us started while we're here at the NFL Combine. Big thanks, of course, to Rick Bozich and to Kyle Neddenriep. Did I miss anybody when I wasn't here?
Nope.
Not.
You're good.
Most importantly, thanks to you guys, man. Without you, we've got no reason to be here, but we'll be back here again to do it tomorrow as we get closer to Indiana playing their last game in regular season play and the conference as a whole as more games coming up. We'll see how as the world turns. Until tomorrow, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.